There's a number that changes everything. Not your salary, not your investment returns, not how much your house is worth. $20,000 in savings. That's it. That's the number. Now, I know what you're thinking. 20 grand? That's nothing. That doesn't buy you a house in Sydney. That's not enough to retire on. That's barely a decent used car these days. And you're right. On paper, $20,000 isn't life-changing money. But here's the thing, and this is what nobody talks about. It's not what the $20,000 does to your bank account that matters. It's what it does to your brain. Because the moment you hit that number, something shifts. The way you think about money changes. The way you make decisions changes. The options available to you change. And honestly, the way you feel when you wake up in the morning changes. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly why $20,000 is the turning point and what specifically happens to your life once you get there. But first, let me give you some context. Because here's a stat that should shock you. According to recent research, more than 1/3 of Australians have less than $5,000 in savings. And get this, almost 10% of Australians have less than $100 sitting in savings right now. $100. In a country where the average rent in a capital city is now well over $2,000 a month, where a single unexpected car repair can run $1,500, where a trip to the emergency vet, a broken hot water system, or a week off work sick can completely derail your finances if you've got nothing behind you. The vast majority of Australians are living with almost zero financial cushion. And when you're living like that, paycheck to paycheck, week to week, something happens to your brain that most people never talk about. It's called financial anxiety, and it operates quietly in the background of every decision you make. Every time you swipe your card at the supermarket, there's a little voice. Every time your car makes a weird noise, every time you check your bank account on a Sunday night before a big week, that low-level hum of financial stress that never really goes away. The $20,000 mark doesn't eliminate that voice forever, but it's the first time in your life that it genuinely quietens down, and that changes everything. Here's the first big shift. When you have no savings buffer, almost every financial decision you make is driven by fear or desperation, or both. Your car breaks down and it needs $1,200 in repairs. You don't have $1,200, so you stick it on a credit card at 20% interest because you have no choice. You need the car to get to work. Your landlord raises the rent. You can't really afford it, but moving costs money you don't have. Bond, removalists, new connection fees. So you just stay and absorb the hit. Your employer offers you an opportunity, but it involves taking a small pay cut for 6 months while you learn a new role. You can't consider it. You can't afford 6 months of reduced income, so you stay put. See what's happening? When you have no buffer, your options collapse. You become reactive instead of proactive. You make the safe choice, the defensive choice, not because it's the best choice, but because you literally can't afford to do anything else. Now here's what changes when you have $20,000 sitting in a high-interest savings account. You still get the car bill, you still get the rent increase, life still throws things at you, but your response is fundamentally different. The car gets fixed, you pull from savings, you don't touch a credit card, no interest, no debt spiral, done. The rent goes up, you weigh up the options with a clear head, you can afford to move if you need to. That negotiating power alone is worth thousands. The job opportunity lands on your desk, and for the first time, you can actually consider it. $20,000 doesn't buy you luxury, but it buys you options, and options are freedom. This one blew my mind when I really thought about it. Most people think savings makes you more conservative, more cautious, less willing to take risks. It's actually the opposite. When you've got nothing saved, every risk feels existential because it kind of is. If the side business fails, you're done. If the investment drops, you can't eat. If you leave the job and it doesn't work out, you've got nowhere to land. So you take zero risks. You stay in the safe lane forever. But once you've got $20,000 behind you, something remarkable happens. You realize that you can take a calculated risk and survive the downside. That freelance project you've been too scared to try, if it falls over, you've got months of runway to recover. You're not destroyed, you're inconvenienced. That ETF investment you've been researching but never pulled the trigger on? You've got an emergency fund separate from your investment money. A market dip doesn't threaten your ability to pay rent. That business idea you've had for 3 years? You've now got seed capital and a buffer. You can take the first steps without betting everything. Research in behavioral economics backs this up completely. It's called the wealth effect, and it shows that people with even modest financial buffers are significantly more likely to pursue opportunities, take career risks, and invest than people with no savings. $20,000 doesn't make you reckless, it makes you brave, and there's a difference.
Now here's one that's genuinely exciting. When you've got $20,000 in a quality high-interest savings account in Australia right now, and there are accounts offering around 5% per year, you are earning roughly $1,000 a year in interest just for it sitting there. $1,000 for doing nothing. That's your Netflix, your Spotify, your gym membership, and your phone bill all paid for by interest income. Now, I know $1,000 doesn't sound life-changing, but psychologically it is, because for the first time in your life, money is working for you instead of you working entirely for money. And here's where the compounding kicks in. That $1,000 in interest earns interest next year and the year after. And if you keep adding to the $20,000, which you will because your saving habits are now locked in, it snowballs. The maths on compound interest sounds boring until you actually run the numbers. $20,000 at 5% per year, adding $500 a month over 10 years, you're sitting on over $100,000 without ever investing in a single share, without touching property, without doing anything complicated. And $100,000, that's a house deposit in some states. That's 10 years of super contributions. That's genuine financial independence territory. It all starts at $20,000. That's the first domino. Okay, this one is a bit deeper, but stay with me. When you've never had savings, and most Australians fall into this category, your subconscious identity around money is built around scarcity, around being bad with money, around the feeling that saving is something other people do, disciplined people, rich people, not people like you. It's not a conscious thought, but it drives behavior constantly. Research from behavioral economists like Richard Thaler, who won a Nobel Prize for this work, shows that we all make financial decisions based not just on the numbers, but on our mental model of who we are financially. If your identity is someone who doesn't save, you make decisions that confirm that identity. You spend, you justify it, you stay stuck. But the moment you hit $20,000, something cracks. You've proved yourself wrong. You've proved to your own brain that you can do this, that you are someone who saves. And that new identity is incredibly powerful because now your spending decisions, your investment decisions, your career decisions, all of them start to align with the identity of someone who is in control of their money. It's not just a savings account, it's evidence that you've changed. And once you believe that about yourself, you stop making the decisions of someone who's bad with money. This one might surprise you. Money stress is one of the leading causes of relationship breakdown in Australia. Full stop. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every conversation about money with your partner, your family, your housemates, it's loaded, it's charged, it's stressful, because the stakes feel impossibly high when there's no margin. Can we afford to go to that wedding? Becomes a fight. The car needs new tires becomes a crisis. Should we go on a holiday this year? Becomes a source of guilt. Once you've got $20,000 in buffer, the emotional charge around these conversations drops dramatically. You can still have money discussions, you still need to be thoughtful, but they're no longer emergencies, they're choices. And choice, that shared sense of having options together, is one of the most powerful things a couple or a family can have. There's also a practical side here for Australians specifically, with over 40% of Australians saying they expect their financial situation to improve in 2026, according to recent YouGov research. The people who actually make that improvement aren't the ones who get a pay rise, they're the ones who already had a savings foundation to build on. The $20,000 gives you a foundation. Everything else gets built on top. Alright, enough of the why. Let's talk the how, because $20,000 can feel overwhelming if you're starting from zero, or from $500, or from -$2,000 on a credit card. So here's how I'd think about it in stages.
Stage 1, get to $1,000. That's your first goal, not $20,000, just $1,000. It's enough to handle a small emergency without touching a credit card. And the psychological win of hitting $1,000 for the first time is genuinely massive. Build on that. Stage 2, get to $5,000. This is your proper starter emergency fund. Research from MoneySmart suggests 3 to 6 months of expenses as the target, but $5,000 gets you into safe territory for most everyday Australian emergencies. Stage 3, push to $20,000. This is where the mindset shift I've been describing today really kicks in. This is where the options open up, where the identity shift happens, where interest income starts to feel real. In practical terms, for someone earning an average Australian wage, saving $500 a month, it takes about 3.5 years to get from $0 to $20,000. 3.5 years. That sounds like a long time, but you know what else takes 3.5 years? Staying stuck, staying stressed, staying in the reactive cycle where every unexpected bill sends you backwards. The time passes either way. The question is whether you're building something with it. So, let's bring it home. The $20,000 mark isn't about the number itself. It's about what happens to you on the other side of it. You stop making fear-based decisions. You start taking calculated risks. Your money starts earning money. Your identity around money permanently changes, and the stress in your relationships drops. None of that happens at $0. Some of it starts at $1,000. More of it kicks in at $5,000. But the real shift, the complete shift, happens around that $20,000 mark. Most Australians will never get there, not because they can't, but because nobody ever explained to them that this specific number is a turning point, not just financially, psychologically. Now you know. So wherever you're starting from today, 0, 500, 5,000, take the next step. Open the high-interest savings account if you haven't. Set up the automatic transfer, even if it's $50 a week, because that $50 a week isn't just $50. It's the beginning of a completely different financial life. If this clicked for you, hit subscribe. I break down real money stuff for everyday Australians every single week. No complicated finance jargon, no get-rich-quick nonsense, just the practical stuff that actually moves the needle. I'll see you in the next one.